Good morning, everyone. This is the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner's webinar to receive input about strategic planning for the OCCC's 2027 through 2031 cycle. My name is Leslie Pettyjohn, and I serve as the agency's commissioner. I'm joined today by other members of the OCCC senior staff as panelists, including Director of Consumer Protection, Christine Graham, Director of Licensing, Finance, and HR, Moran Diamond, General Counsel, Matt Nance, along with other OCCC staff. Our meeting organizers today are from the legal department, Assistant General Counsel Audrey Spalding and Paralegal Nico Fisher. And before we get into the substance of our meeting today, I have a quick housekeeping item. We are holding this meeting through an online webinar platform, GoToWebinar. Some of you might be listening on your phones, some may be watching on your computers, and some may be doing both. For those of you watching on your computer, there's a questions window where you can submit comments to staff. If you have technical questions about using the webinar features, you can type them in that window pane, and Audrey or Nico will try to answer those. So now let's move on to our program. First of all, thank you all for being here. We've had a large crowd and a nice response for this, and I want to personally thank you for the time and thought that you've committed to this conversation. As a regulatory agency, we rely on strong relationships with all of you, our regulated entities, community members, and the public, and advocacy organizations to ensure that our work is effective, fair, and responsive to the environment in which we all operate. Today's meeting has a very clear purpose. We are here to listen. We've been working on a new strategic plan cycle that will guide our work over the next 2 to 4 years, and your perspectives are essential to shaping that direction. We want to understand how you see the landscape we're all navigating, the challenges, the opportunities, and the expectations you have for us as your regulator. I'll spend the first portion of our time together on an overview of the strategic planning process and a little bit about the OCCC core functions. We're also going to have a few polling questions along the way today. And at any time during this webinar, you can provide comments to us through the chat function. And then towards the end of our time, we're going to have an opportunity for comments, open forum for comments, and folks can be recognized for verbal comments if desired. And again, we are here to listen. So why now? First of all, this is the time in the biennial cycle that every state agency renews their strategic plan. But beyond that, the environment around us is changing quickly, whether it's shifts in technology, evolving public expectations, new economic pressures, or emerging products and risks. These forces influence how we carry out our mission. To plan responsibly, we need a clear picture of what you're experiencing and what you anticipate in the years ahead. Recently, we concluded a customer service survey, and many of you had the opportunity to respond to that survey. We have heard you, but we want to hear more. We know that we will not always meet everyone's expectation, but we want to work together towards a better future and experience. Your insights help us to identify blind spots, challenge assumptions, and ensure that our strategic direction reflects the realities that you face every day. I also want to be clear about how your input will be used. Everything we hear today will be synthesized along with our other data and research we're gathering. Your perspectives will directly inform the development of our strategic priorities. A few notes on how we'll approach the discussion. We encourage candor, we welcome constructive critique, and we value a diversity of viewpoints. Okay, I'd like to start us off with a polling question. We'd like to get a general sense of our participants today with a question about how you would describe yourself. Are you a consumer, a licensee or a registrant, a trade association rep, a consumer advocacy organization, or some other interested party? And so, Nico, would you please launch our first poll? So I will give us a few minutes to select the answers. Maybe not a few minutes. This should be an easy question. And Nico, when you feel like we have enough responses, will you share the results for us, please? Okay, looks like we have a lot of representatives of our regulated community here today, and we appreciate your attendance and we appreciate everyone else's attendance with us. I thank you for participating in the poll. Okay, we'll close that poll and move back to our presentation. I think most of you know this, but in case some of our folks on the webinar are new to the OCCC, we are the state agency that regulates certain non-depository entities that engage in business in Texas. Our mission is to regulate non-bank financial services and to educate consumers and industry providers, fostering a fair, lawful, and healthy financial services market that grows economic prosperity for all Texans. We fulfill our mission by regulating and licensing certain non-depository institutions. We protect and safeguard consumers from abusive and deceptive lending practices. We educate consumers and creditors on rights and responsibilities, and we attempt to communicate collaborative and encourage communication among the financial services industry, the consumer public, and the agency. Now, on to our strategic planning process. What does that involve? It involves us defining some long-term priorities, assessing our internal performance, engaging with our stakeholders to guide future agency directions, such as what we're doing right now. We establish goals, key performance indicators, and priorities, and we attempt to align our resources, technology, and workforce priorities. We do this to ensure that we focus on the highest impact work. We want to improve our accountability and transparency. This helps us to strengthen our alignment across our operations, and it positions our agency to adapt to emerging issues. All right, on to our next polling question. Based upon what you know about the OCCC, how effectively do you believe the OCCC is currently fulfilling its mission? So very effectively, somewhat effectively, or ineffectively. So Nico, could you please launch us our next poll number 2? We will wait a moment or two for some responses to come in. And then Nico, would you share? So we've got a distribution, and we appreciate that candid response. And so that's helpful. So let's close that poll and move on to our next slide. So in exercising our responsibilities, we apply the statewide strategic objectives framework across each of our goals. We aim to be accountable. We take ownership of outcomes and performance measures to help ensure the public's trust. We aim to be effective. We streamline our processes and use our resources wisely to maximize value. We aim to be efficient in delivering programs that achieve meaningful and measurable results. We strive to be attentive to customer service, and provide timely, respectful, and responsive service to all stakeholders. And we attempt to be transparent by operating openly, communicating clearly, and making information accessible. So I mentioned our goals, and these are our goals that we have identified. I think some of these may be somewhat obvious, but let's walk through them. Goal A is consumer protection, and our key activities in consumer protection are examinations and complaints. I've also mentioned, we've also mentioned here in this that the movement to the new statewide examination system, SES. The system's not new, but it's new to us. That's an important activity that our staff has been working through. On goal B is our effective licensing and registration program. And those key activities include application processing, the license issuance. Also here, A current activity we're engaged in relates to the NMLS transition. Goal C relates to financial education, and we certainly work to provide education and outreach. We do that directly by providing financial education to consumers. And then the other way we try our activity in this area relates to the administration of the Texas Financial Education Endowment Grant Program. And we spend a fair amount of time working on that. I've also identified House Bill 27, which was a new bill that passed last session that we're working to help support in providing financial education throughout the secondary school curriculum. Goal D relates to efficient and effective agency operations. This is essentially a lot of the administration of a state agency, and we want to ensure that we're operating with, high levels of compliance and ethical stewardship. Our key activities, some key activities in here relate to public information, our financial operations, our information technology. So those are all key to our agency operational efficiency. All right, on to our next polling question number 3. And we'd like to ask you, what do you think should be the top priority over the next 2 to 4 years? And so improving customer service, enhancing transparency, strengthening regulatory effectiveness, increasing efficiency, or improving accountability and performance. So let's please launch poll question number 3 for our audience. Okay, are we ready to share some results on that quick poll? Okay, we have a good distribution. It looks like the highest is in increasing efficiency. Okay, let's close that poll and continue moving on. Part of the strategic planning process includes an activity where we are involved in an assessment of key internal and external factors. And some of the concept that we have identified that will likely have a key impact on our work in the next 2 to 4 years include some of the current economic indicators and trends. We're seeing changes in consumer behavior. There are consumer expectations for accountability among many partners, whether they're people in the industry as well as government. We are also looking at the future of supervision, and we expect the future of supervision to be more data-driven. It will be exercised in more on a more off-site basis, and it will be more continuous as we look at ways to continue our monitoring of certain key things, key activities and practices. Along with those items, we are also anticipating industry changes in growth areas that we see. We are seeing different business or lending structures. We're seeing a growth in bank partnerships. We're also seeing expanding roles of non-bank financial providers. We're seeing emerging products, things such as buy now, pay later, earned wage access, crypto-based lending. These are a lot of the emerging activities and products that we are spending a lot more of our time involved with. And then, of course, technology and automation. Fintech processes are rapidly changing service delivery and business models. We are seeing a decline in brick and mortar locations and a rapid increase, of course, in online activity as it relates to delivery of financial service products. And then lastly, artificial intelligence, which is, of course, in the news everywhere, but it's a rapid growth. There are opportunities, it appears to us, in artificial intelligence to build in compliance tools. But there are also very, very complex risks in artificial intelligence, which include compliance that can easily become a particular issue. But data privacy, potential misleading statements, new obligations related to monitoring third parties if third parties are administering administrative artificial intelligence on behalf of a regulated lending entity. So we see quite a few risks associated with that. So I think it's measured caution as folks look at exploring opportunities for that. I think it certainly does hold a lot of promise and opportunity, but certainly needs to be appropriately exercised. But there are a lot of regulatory items that our agency will be focused on related to that. Next, we have poll question number 4. What external trends do you believe will have the greatest impact in the next 2 to 4 years? Economic conditions, technology and automation, consumer expectations, industry innovation, or legislative and policy changes? So we'll launch that poll, and you can select up to 2. You frankly could select more, but we're trying to kind of hone in on the top 2 or so items. So if you'd select 2, that would be helpful. Are we ready to share those results? Okay, we have some, looks like economic conditions, technology and automation is number 1, but economic conditions are very close, and then legislative or policy changes are pretty close behind. So that's all very helpful. Thank you. We can close that poll now. Hopefully we can get the poll to close here pretty quick. All right, I'm going to continue talking while we work on maybe a technical issue here with the poll at the moment, but I'm almost to the end of some of the items I wanted to mention in the overview. So there's a few additional elements of strategic planning. We analyze our agency resources for meeting current and expected needs, which as some of you may be familiar with, include some need to restructure our assessment rules, most of which were last changed in 2010. We identify redundancies and impediments. These are typically statutory provisions that may be outdated, inconsistent, or could be improved. We do some deep dive on analyzing our workforce. We also seek, as I mentioned earlier, input through our customer service survey and this webinar. So those are elements that will be contained within our strategic plan, and we will report on those as part of the document itself. So with that, I have summarized our overview and our strategic planning process. And I know we're having a little technical issue here on closing the last poll, but we are ready to open it up for comments at this time. And so there are 2 ways to provide your feedback through this webinar. As I mentioned earlier, first you can type your comment out in the chat feature or the question feature and send it to us through the webinar's question feature. Or if you're on a computer with a mic, there should be a function. We'll have some time here, I believe, that will allow you to raise your hand, and we'll be able to acknowledge some folks to make a verbal comment. But feel free throughout this to continue to add your comments to the chat. If we don't get to you during the webinar, we will have all of these questions and comments saved for our use, so we'll be able to consider them. And so I do have our first comment from Ryan Flake saying consumers, including our employees, need more education and protection from predatory interest rates and practices, especially related to payday loans and credit repair companies. So thank you for that comment. We appreciate that. We will certainly include that as part of our evaluation. Next, we have a hand raised from Delicia Cruz. If we can unmute.
Ms. Cruz, I am unmuting you. You are self-muted currently. Ms. Cruz, you should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
My question is, on the annual report, do we do that every year from now on?
Yes, ma'am. Those annual reports are required every year. We will be doing annual reports. I know that one of the groups, the motor vehicle sales finance companies, are having their annual reporting cycle for the first time this year. And so that will be an annual practice. Some of the other regulated entities that I know are on this webinar have been doing that for a long time. But that is an annual process. We have other staff members on the webinar if any of them wish to weigh in, but on that process. But we're working forward on those annual reports. The information is important. We include it as part of a report. Some of you may or may not see, but we annually publish the availability of quality pricing and financial services, usually late in the calendar year, but we produce that and publish that report every year. It's got a lot of good information in it, and we include information that comes an aggregate of those annual reports is what part of the basis of that report. We have another comment about would like to see a more expedited process for licensing, review, and approvals. Thank you for that. I believe we have a question. This may be we may be trying to answer some of these questions directly through the chat feature or question feature possible. We have a hand raised from David Tubb, so if we can unmute Mr. Tubb.
Mr. Tubb, you can unmute yourself at this point. Mr. Tubb, I'm going to message you and see if I can help you get unmuted, and maybe if we have some other questions or comments, we can address those in the meantime.
Right. I do see a question, which may have already been answered in the chat, but it was asking about have we migrated licensing renewals for motor vehicle sales finance to the NMLS system? The answer to that question is not yet. It's coming. The transition for those entities will start later this summer. So there's another question. If the OCCC is here to protect Texans from credit fraud, what is the OCCC doing for me as an auto dealer in in-house financing to protect me from fraud? That's a good question. Fraud is an important issue that affects the entire financial services marketplace. We do believe that some of the compliance provisions help protect in that to the extent that our agency has tools and can be a partner in helping in that area. We certainly will. There may be some comments directly from our enforcement staff, and I'll see if they want to chime in on this question. Or we'll provide some information to you following the webinar related to work that we do. I know those are somewhat, it depends upon the issue, but I know fraud is a very important issue in all areas right now, whether it's payment fraud or other types of fraud. And we certainly, as regulators, want to support an environment that has appropriate protections for industry as well as for consumers. There's a question about, will there be a webinar to show motor vehicle dealers how to do annual reports? We have recently posted a demo for how to do annual reports, and we will certainly be happy to provide the link. I believe the link should be found on our website. And again, if there are some other panelists that would like to help answer that question, I welcome the additional information.
Yeah, this is Christine Graham, Director of Consumer Protection. We do have a video demo for filing annual reports for motor vehicle dealers. We'll send you the link here shortly.
There's another question about the assistance with the new OCCC annual report. And Christy, do we have any additional resources of who someone might contact directly? Is there an email address?
You can email annual report at OCCC.TEXAS, Texas spelled out, .gov. And we can answer your questions through there. You can also call us at 512-936-7625. And then we will get the link for all of the resources and video demo published here in just 1 minute.
And then we also have a guide on the website that lists information about how to file the report, just written instructions. There's a question about the OCCC website being discontinued. No, the OCCC website has not been discontinued. I don't know what the issue may be. We will try to take your information and get back with you to see kind of what issues you are having, but the website should be up and running and all should be well. Alex is still available. For those of you that are working with Alex, we are going to be looking at again, trying to be good data stewards as well as protecting information and helping against any potential fraud. It's just good data practice, data hygiene. We will be starting to close inactive profiles on Alex, and that will start happening for folks that have already transitioned off of Alex. But we'll have to get back with you about what you may be experiencing, because the OCCC website should be up and running. Okay, and then we have a link which we can publish to all of you for the annual reporting resources and demo. If we can publish that to the entire audience, if our organizers are able to do that, that's great, and provide the link. It is OCCC.texas.gov, and then it's on the industry page, and then the motor vehicle sales finance page, and then it says motor vehicle annual reporting, and the resources are all on that page on the website. There's a question about CAB reports. How will CAB submit those quarterly and annual reports since we don't have Alex anymore? Yes, credit access businesses do submit quarterly reports, and we have been submitting those through Alex. We have developed, our staff has developed a new system that we are using. We think it's a lot more straightforward and we're able to work with that system. And right now, all of the regulated lenders and the motor vehicle sales finance companies and property tax lenders have been filing their reports in that new system. We are beginning development of the reporting portal for the credit access businesses. We expect, right now our timeline is we would expect by the third quarter, we'll probably be ready to file in that system, but we are working, the credit access business reports are far more involved than the other groups. And so it's going to take us a bit longer on the development, but we are certainly working towards that. And hopefully we'll have a very streamlined approach and easy way for you to file those quarterly and annual reports. Question about will the seminar be offered in Spanish? And we don't currently have plans for that. We do have a feature, most of our website information, you are able to get, there's a feature you can see the website in Spanish. We will look into whether, I'm not sure if the question is really targeted at the demo for the motor vehicle annual reports or this particular seminar, but we will work on, we are trying to work to make sure that we have resources available where we can in both English and Spanish. Okay, we are wrapping up at the bottom of the hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I want to first of all thank you again for your partnership and your willingness to engage with us. Let me turn my camera off for the last minute or so here. I forgot. Again, thank you for your partnership, your willingness to engage with us, your thoughtful comments. If you have additional comments or you wish to follow up with us on an issue discussed today, you can send us an email. You can always call us, but you can send us an email at info@occc.texas.gov. We monitor that mailbox. It's a general mailbox, but we can get your inquiry directed to the appropriate person. Your input truly matters, and it will help us build a stronger, more responsive strategic plan for the years ahead. Thank you all for attending. This concludes today's webinar, and I wish you all a good day.